Welcome to the Universal Dancer Podcast with your host Leslie Zare, author of The Alchemy of Dance and the Alchemia Remedies. Coming to you from Cairo, Egypt, the ancient land of Chem. Journey with us to explore sacred dance, the sacred arts, the mystical and the magical. Join a community of like-minded souls seeking to understand the cosmic dance of co-creation through the sacred arts. Come along and expand your mind, ignite your creativity, and explore something new and something old. Welcome to the Universal Dancer Podcast. I'm Leslie Zare, your host. And I have another special guest today, so why don't we just introduce her and we'll jump right in. Laura Jane, founder of The Art of Woman, is a sensual feminine embodiment guide, working with the powerful healing modality of dance and the glorious art form that is burlesque. She helps women to reconnect their bodies, their femininity, their passions, and their joy, as well as their innate sensuality, running online Burlesque Muse Workshops and coaching programs that assist women in unearthing their unique expression, healing their inner critic, cultivating body love, and journeying towards meeting their inner creative muse. Laura originally trained in ballet and contemporary dance at Central School of Ballet, but has since explored and trained within other techniques such as Isadora Duncan dance, and is trained within the facilitation of chakra dance and dance movement therapy. She offers monthly seductive siren dance classes within the level 2 of her membership on Patreon, and has also devised her own technique of sensual goddess bar, merging the genres of ballet and burlesque. She has other online offerings and classes such as feminine flow dance, sensual woman, ASMR, healing Reiki dance. Let's welcome Laura to the show. Hi, Laura. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Leslie. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to get into this topic. But before I do that, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you got into dance. Is this something that started in childhood or later on? Just tell us a bit about how that all happened for you.
So I discovered dance via ballet when I was probably about 7 or 8. Probably quite late, actually, for somebody who wanted to become a ballerina. Although I have to say that I do remember being even younger and sticking my mother's records on her beautiful old record player and just moving freely around our living room, just moving and dancing and loving the freedom of it. But I discovered ballet at about 7 or 8 and decided that was where I wanted my life to be, within ballet. It didn't work out that way. I didn't continue in a career of ballet, but I absolutely loved it. And when I went to college, dance college, I learned contemporary, which I loved as well, Graham and Cunningham technique. I wasn't a great jazz dancer, but since leaving dance college, I've just been open to learning all types of dance, just exploring all different genres and techniques. I love flamenco and I loved national dance. Anything. I love national dance because I love to learn about the culture of and the different traditions of dance, throughout the world, different styles and music, and you really get a feel for, I think, the soul of that country, when you learn their national dance. So really, I'm just a full lover of dance in every way.
In every form. That's good.
Form,
That's
yes.
good. Well,
Absolutely.
I do think that each one has something to offer, and to experience different types of dance is important. But then it sounds like you went in in a completely different and more specific direction. So tell us about the art of woman and what is being a sensual feminine embodiment guide. Tell us a bit about that.
Okay, so I started wanting to work with women on a deeper level because I started work as a personal stylist. So I would help women cultivate the way they presented themselves. But I knew I wanted something that really touched them on a deeper level, that really helped them to unearth all of their potential, that helped them to cultivate their confidence, to build up their confidence and their connection to themselves. So I started working as a women's coach as well, to really help them sort of step on those blocks towards really being able to present themselves and express themselves fully, rather than to keep themselves contained in the box and follow what everyone else was doing. So I started coaching several years ago, and to me, I realized probably about 4 or 5 years ago that a lot of the reason for disconnect between women and their bodies and their desire to create and their ability to express was really because of a disconnection to their bodies and their sensuality and their sexuality, because it's life force energy, isn't it? Sexual energy.
Absolutely.
And there are so many reasons why this disconnect happens. There are so many different phases of women's life where they really struggled to remain in their body rather than living from their head. There's many reasons why they deny their body as a way of expressing themselves. I think for me, I really realized that when you have children, and I'm a mother of 3, it's really difficult to get back to your own body in the way that you see it and the way you feel about it, because it changes, sometimes beyond recognition. So very often we deny ourselves how our body is feeling, how it's looking. We don't prioritize our bodies in the way that we look after them, in the way that we present them, because everyone and everything else is a priority when you become a mother, yes? And even if you haven't become a mother from the fact that you've actually birthed a child, I have realized that this sort of mid phase of a woman's life is very often the stage when you are disconnected from that sensual, sexual, embodied energy, because you are putting everything else out into the world. If you haven't had a child, you've birthed a career, you're nurturing something usually at this mid phase of life. And so we forget.
That life also pushes us into our heads in general. I think if you're in culture, in society, you're being pushed out of your body and into your head. So for whatever reason, I think this is a common occurrence amongst women, is really losing that connection with the body.
Absolutely, yes. And very often we are conditioned to feel that feeling into the feminine body is a weakness. We are expected to forge ahead in a very masculine way. And so many women have denied the femininity, the softness, the feeling into the body, because they want to keep up with everyone and everything else, and they want to show, they want to prove that they are doing everything they possibly can to, remain on a level, and they're just not listening to their bodies. They are not using their bodies to their their advantage, their feminine bodies, in a way that I suppose they deny the goddess within. Okay, so I'm a lover of goddess culture, and the fact that in ancient civilizations, womanhood, femininity, goddess culture was so revered, you know, over the gods, I believe. And we were upheld many centuries ago, us as women, us as goddesses, that feminine energy, that sexuality. And we have forgotten ourselves. I mean, we all know that the patriarchy and various religious sects took over that took our power away because they were frightened of it, right? So we lived under that suppression for many centuries. But I do feel also that women can disconnect from their feminine power themselves in these days, because we feel that we have to be keeping up with men. We feel that we have to show that we are as strong and that we can do everything that they do.
We've forgotten that our femininity is important.
And it's a power, it is a superpower.
Yes. And we need it for balance. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And harmony. You know, I think there's a lot of disharmony nowadays between men, women, society, because nobody really feels into their own bodies and their own energy, their overpowering energy they deny, because I suppose we are being moved towards being everything and not really leaning into our own powers.
So how is the work that you're doing? How does this help women to reconnect to their bodies and their femininity, their passions, whatever? How do you do that?
So I do like to use dance and movement. That is why I'm here very often, because I know that it is the most potent way of embodying that energy, of imbuing our bodies and our souls with that energy of the feminine essence, the expression, the creativity. I mean, dance and movement is so powerful for conjuring up our unique expression of creativity, and that's another quality that is really important, I think, for the feminine body to really keep on cultivating that creativity, because we are creators, aren't we? You know, it's within us, and if we don't give ourselves,
our anatomy. Yes,
it absolutely is. And so, yes, even if we're not creating a life, I feel that if we're not creating something, we feel a little dead inside, you know, that there is something that we need to put out there, to birth into the world. And so by bringing in movement and dance, women learn how to connect back to that body, to really feel emotions moving through their bodies, to enable them to release anything that is negatively stagnant and stuck within the body. There's nothing like dance for doing that. There's many different techniques that I have studied over the years to get rid of stagnant energy. But you can also imbue the body with power and affirmations of, you know, greatness and beauty. And I very often use affirmation into pose and movement. Sorry, my birds come out. Into pose and movement, so that they can really feel themselves fully embodying those affirmations, those beliefs, those spells that they are creating with their body, to help them gain confidence, self-love and self-worth, and knowledge of their power as women as well.
And you offer Burlesque Muse Workshops. Tell us what that is. And
yes, so I came to Burlesque probably about 5-6 years ago, and for me, having come from a very strict balletic background where you all had to keep in line and do the same steps and have your leg at a certain height and be the perfect body shape as well, when I discovered burlesque and that it was something that you could create to be just your own, you could create whatever you wanted, whatever story you wanted to portray. You could use whatever music you wished, whatever way you wanted to move. It was absolutely your own theatre piece to create, and the freedom in that is so exciting, because I never liked keeping in line, right? And so this is why I wouldn't have been a great ballerina. I didn't like sticking to rules and conforming. And I didn't want to be the same as everyone else. I wanted to stand out, and I had my own passions and ways that I wanted to do things. And so when I discovered burlesque and that freedom, it was just so exciting. And having worked,
maybe explain
yes.
what burlesque is, because I'm not sure that everyone knows what that is.
Yeah, of course. Okay,
And
so
I have my own understanding of it, but it may
yeah,
not be it may not
of
be what you're
course.
talking about at all.
So burlesque, it's it is deriving from the Italian word burlesco, which actually means to make a sort of comical spectacle of oneself. So originally, when burlesque started, they were very comical sketches. Yes, usually making a joke out of the performer, and then it developed into a more glamorous art form. You had the Folie Bergère and the Moulin Rouge dancers who used it to express that more sexual, erotic side of woman when they moved. So, you had the can-can dancers within the Moulin Rouge, and it was shocking, to be flashing bits of skin that previously, in the Victorian period, you didn't show ankles, right? So even a flash of calf was hugely shocking. And it developed. So from more chorus pieces, you then began to get solo performers in the 1940s. I mean, you had Josephine Baker in the 20s and 30s as well. You had Gypsy Rose Lee. Oh gosh, many of those very classical noir Hollywoods glamour icons, would use the art form to allure and seduce. And it was at the height of the time of glamour, when women were really, I think, revered for their sensual power. And then it really, I think it had a rebirth around the early 90s with Dita Von Teese. And it is known as an art form. It is effectively a striptease, but it is so much more than that. It is about women standing in their power. It's about them expressing themselves. It's about them absolutely being in the knowledge of their greatness, within their bodies and how they want to look. And this is why I realized that there was so much more to the art form than just coming at it from a performative point of view. And I realized that, you know, when I started performing, so many women would come up to me and say, oh my God, I've always been intrigued, and I've always wanted to learn, and I've always wanted to go and watch burlesque. And, you know, very often the audience at burlesque shows are female, because they are just absolutely captivated by the shows, by the performers, by the variety, by just how glamorous and exciting it is. And so I realized that I could use the art form to help women to really unearth their own creative expression, to come back to themselves and who they were as women, and how they wanted to portray themselves. So the whole meaning behind the Burlesque Muse is that I ask my ladies to create this muse in their mind, this burlesque muse, and I also call it a higher power persona, right? It's like an alter ego. So many women that come to my Burlesque Muse workshops, they're not thinking of actually performing on stage necessarily, but it really is to help them bridge the gap between the woman that they are right now, and very often that is a woman who is ashamed of their body, who feels sad that they've lost excitement and glamour and sensual power. You know, very often they're mothers, or they've been through the menopause, their bodies have changed a lot. There's a lot of mundanity in their lives. They're either rearing children or they're just working really hard. And I get them to create this muse, and we work on conjuring her up over a matter of weeks. And it's all about bridging the gap between who they were when they started and coming to meet this muse, so that, which is effectively who they were anyway inside, but she's usually really deeply rooted beneath, under layers of shame and doubt and self-loathing and whatever it is that we get really bogged under as women. And we work together over a matter of weeks and months to really unearth the desires of each woman. And they're all, you know, they're unique. We should absolutely enjoy cultivating our uniqueness. So I never teach women the same routines, and I never give them the same steps. I don't believe that really helps with anything, because then you're just asking them to conform to a certain look and a certain way of moving. I ask them to really think about what music most moves them, how they want to move their body, and to become really intimate with their body and the music as well, because I think that it's so important. You know, if you're going to express yourself in a most empowered and sensual way, you have to feel intimate with yourself. And the music as well, it has to move and rouse you. So we work with, disconnect from body, and to really become friends, which I think is the minimum level that we need to do as women with our bodies. We at least need to become friends with them again, if not, in a state of absolute love, which isn't always
Step
possible.
by step. Yes.
Exactly. It's not always possible, but
Yeah.
the minimum level we need to attain is that friendship with our body, that acceptance, that forgiveness that our bodies might not be exactly as
Well, I think it's also the ability to stand naked in front of yourself, to be able to expose yourself to yourself, which most of us can probably not do. And
Yes.
that may be why we have an obsession with what we put on our bodies, so that possibly no one will actually see ourselves, our true selves, our inner selves.
Absolutely. It's so true. Yes. And it is something that I do usually tell my ladies to do, to work up towards. We use, I call it mirror magic practices, where I ask them to gaze in the mirror, first looking straight into their eyes, and then, yes, effectively strip down layer by layer the levels of self-loathing and embarrassment and disconnect. And if they can, the ultimate goal is to be able to stand in front of yourself naked. Absolutely. Because if we can't do it for ourselves, how can we do it for somebody else? And I like to think of burlesque as instead of stripping away the clothes, it's stripping away those layers of shame and sadness. There's so much sadness because we're all feeling that we need to look in a certain way in order to be the expected perfect woman, but everyone is perfect. But there's
I
many
think
ways.
that's the dance of the seven veils. I mean, that was Ishtar's dance of the seven veils, was
Yes.
her descent through the seven gates. And I remember once working with this, and I was in front of a mirror, and I was working with these veils, and I had these veils on, and I was sort of thinking through this and working through this, and I had all these veils on myself, and I had I'm getting goosebumps. I had the strangest experience. I looked up in the mirror, and I could see the goddess standing in front of me. And it was me, but it wasn't me at the same time. And that was profound. I can't even explain what happened. There was some kind of shift in my thinking, but I think that was the moment that I saw the goddess inside of me, or the goddess around, or I don't even know how to explain that, but that we were one and the same.
Yes.
And it was shocking to me, because I'm not a person that tends to look in the mirror to begin with. Like the dance that I do, we do not do in front of mirrors, so that you can be more in your inner space. So this was really,
Yes.
for me, there something so out of character for me to be doing in the first place, and then to see something so beautiful was, it was definitely shifted my thinking and my perspective.
I love that. And I do believe that all women are so beautiful when they dance. And even though so many women think they can't dance, it is so deeply within us, this movement, this woman's dance. Women have been dancing from day one. It's only in recent decades that we have begun to shun the dance for various reasons. But we dance to celebrate, we dance to grieve, to pray, to seduce. And I think that when a woman is free in her body and freely expressing herself, there is nothing more beautiful. I remember watching a video of women probably in their 70s and up, just freely moving in some convention. I don't know exactly what it was, but it absolutely stopped me in my tracks. I felt incredibly moved by it, because to witness that joy and absolute liberation from all of the other stuff that we have to go through in life, I know that when I am dancing, I am elevated above all of the mundanity, all of the stressful, the stressful stuff of life. I nearly said a naughty word.
And I think it's something
I
you
realized
exude.
at the beginning of,
It's a
yes,
light that shines. When women are really empowered
absolutely.
and centered in the dance, there's something that
Yeah.
radiates some kind of beauty, light, whatever you want to call it,
Mm.
that just radiates out of them. And I think that's the problem, is we're spending too much time looking from the other direction and what does this movement look like,
What am I
when in
looking like?
fact
Yes,
someone who's watching you is actually enthralled by what you're exuding and probably doesn't
absolutely.
even notice the movement that you're doing.
It's like watching children, isn't it? When they don't have dance training, they're not following specific steps, but to watch a child move freely from their own heart is the most magical thing. And yeah, as you said, Leslie, and I always say this to women that are in the Muse program, if, say, you wanted to use the art of burlesque to seduce. So some women, they want to come and they want to learn how to move in a sensual way, and they want to learn to strip tease, which I can offer help with as well. I said, but if you wanted to be using burlesque as in a performance way, as a way of seducing, you absolutely have to have seduced yourself first. You have to be in love with your body, with the way it's moving. And I guess that's the sacredness of it, really, isn't it? It's that magic of absolutely being within your own body, as you said, not looking out at it from a performative point of view. It's almost a transcendence, isn't it? And so if anyone was to watch, like when you watch children move freely, they are elevated and they are so joyful, and you can see how happy they are. And anyone who is watching somebody else dance, move, perform a striptease perhaps, they would feel it. If you were feeling ashamed or you're self-conscious, those emotions can be conveyed. So I help women by saying you absolutely have to have seduced yourself first. You have to be so in love with the way your body moves, the way your body feels. Yeah, and
And I
it's
think that's
powerful.
also the feminine, the direction of movement is receptive. So we're pulling in rather than pushing out. You have to have that, open yourself to that receptivity so that you're drawing in. If you were doing
Mm,
it for someone else, you're drawing in rather
yeah.
than pushing something out.
I believe that too. I was speaking to a friend the other day who is a Qigong practitioner, and she was saying that in the tradition of that style of dance and movement, that the dance is a masculine act because it's more outward. And I said, oh, I'm really surprised actually, because for me, dance is so feminine. But I did understand that it could be viewed upon in that light. But I look at it as a way of receiving when I dance. I don't do it for anyone else. I don't do it as a performance.
But I
Even if
think
I
it
am on
depends on
stage
the dance
performing.
form,
Yeah, perhaps.
because
Yes.
ballet, I think, is very masculine. It's everyone has
Yes.
to be exactly the same, and that's the core should
True.
all be lifting their leg to the same height,
Mm.
and you would be scolded if you do something out of that. So
Yeah, you had to
I
keep in
really do
line.
think it depends traditionally, if someone says dance, that may be what they're thinking about. So, and then that makes sense that you would define it that way. But I do
Yeah.
think there are different forms of dance.
Yes, I completely agree with that. Yes.
And
And
those
I
which are
just,
sort of free movement or
yeah.
pulling in would be a much more feminine
Mm, yes,
type.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so what else? What
Well,
else?
and you studied Isadora Duncan dance.
Mm.
Tell us a bit about that and what you gained from that whole experience.
So Isadora Duncan, for anyone that isn't au fait with her and her history, she was a dancer of the early 19th century. She was from San Francisco. She was so inspired by she first discovered Grecian pottery in the Museum of London when she came to visit London, and she was absolutely enamored with the classical Grecian poses on the pottery. And I believe she had been dancing before she came to London, but she, from then on, was very led by the goddess, the Grecian goddess style of movement and the expression, the language through the bodies. We studied Tanagra poses, I remember, which is, every movement has, you would be touching the tunic or the sandal. I can't show you all here because I'm on a little camera, but it was really using your body to as language, as dance is. But she was one of the first to break away from the conformity of ballet. She hated ballet, and she believed that all movement came from the solar plexus, so the soul, and that even though there was a technique and there was a language that she devised with her movements, it all felt so much freer than any form of dance that had come before that. So, as I said, yes, she was very moved by Grecian style poses. So she would wear very sheer tunics, and this is the early 1900s. So that was outrageous for a woman to be dancing barefoot and in sheer tunics. So I was thinking about this earlier. In a way, she was almost a very, very early form of a burlesque performer, because she outraged so many theatres when she went to perform, so scantily clad. They hadn't seen anything like that before. And she really lived her life as she danced her dances. She believed that women should be free from conforming to the societal expectations, whether it be the way she dressed, whether it be the way she ran her relationships. She was very famous for having some very scandalous relationships, love affairs, children out of marriage, which for those days was a scandal. She was always creating scandal. And in Boston, one day she arrived on stage and she pulled down her tunic and bared her breasts. And some of you might know this very famous quote. She said, "You were wild here once, don't let them tame you." So in a way, Isadora Duncan was the first burlesque dancer.
Yes.
And that is really what I think that we can imbue our lives and our bodies with, that wildness that we let leave us once we start, entering into puberty and learning that we have to we have to look a certain way, stop moving in a certain way, stand in line, behave ourselves, and that's why I love Isadora so much, not just for her dance, which to me when I see women dance, Isadora dance, and I've seen women of all ages, up in well into their 70s, dance Duncan dance. For me, it is just the most beautiful way to see a woman move, because it does, you can feel it coming from the soul. There's a very different energy. You can feel the
She was a
energy emanating.
pioneer. Yeah.
Absolutely. She really, really was. Yeah. So a very, very important dance icon to me. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your dance. I think this is an important way for women to, as you said, to connect with their bodies, and I think what you're offering is something beautiful. So if people
Thank
want to
you.
get in touch with you, you have a website,
Yes. That's right.
theartofwomen.co.uk,
Not a woman. Yes. That's
and
right.
they can find you on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
Laura Jane, The Art of Woman.
That's right.
Woman. I should say that more
Woman.
clearly.
Yeah. Woman.
Otherwise, you will not find her. Yes. And all of these will be in the show notes. So you can go there as well. And on YouTube, The Art of Woman.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
right. Yes.
So anything else you would like to leave us with before you go?
Really, that I believe that the work that I do with women just leads them to be free, freer than possibly they've ever been. It enables them to bring out that muse and that inner diva, and it enables them to bring more glamour, excitement, joy into their lives, because I just feel it's something that we all want more of and all need more of in our lives.
Yes.
And it's completely possible. It really is. And I believe that women should feel more free within themselves and the way that they can move and express and present themselves. And it's such a joy to work with women on this process towards meeting their burlesque muse. It's the most exciting thing for me and for them to take them on that journey.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for offering that. I think, yes, we need more joy in the world. So however that comes,
Yes.
find it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you
here
for having
and
me.
sharing with us. All right. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Leslie.
And thank you to the audience for being here and listening. And we do have a playlist with other podcast episodes. So if you would like to hear other women and their experiences with sacred dance, please look at that, and please check out Laura's website and the classes that she offers, and you can connect with her through her website, Instagram. I've been following her on Instagram for a long time, so I've seen this evolution. So it's very nice to see how it's come and moved into dance. All right. Well, I hope you will join us again next month when I have another new guest. And as I mentioned, please look at the other episodes. All right. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.